Welcome one, welcome all to the podcast that shines the light on athletes past, future and present. This is their story. This is 2020 Vision. Hola, bienvenidos al episodio Vientitos de 2020 Vision. Hello and welcome to episode 22 of 2020 Vision. On this week's episode, we travelled to Spain. Well, my voice did. I speak with two athletes that are trained for Doha 2019. Both long-distance runners. They are Ben Buckingham and Matthew Ramsden. My first chat is with Ben Buckingham. Ben is a big believer in training alongside others to help yourself as an athlete down the track. He believes in the team mentality and definitely is a team player. Here is my chat with Ben Buckingham. Ben Buckingham, thank you very much for joining me on episode 22 of 2020 Vision. Let's start with where you started as an athlete.
I'd mainly say I started with my mother. She's doing her 9th Melbourne Marathon this year. She was reasonably fit when I was a junior, and I started running just through going jogging with her in its simplest form, and then that flows on to you join. I joined a little athletics club up in northeast Victoria, which is where I'm from, in Wangaratta. Moved on to Wodonga Athletics as a junior, and then moved down to Melbourne as a senior for university, and have progressed from there. In a summary.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. So, university, what did that provide you in the way of athletics? Was that more of a growth and a push towards now competing in the green and gold?
It was definitely quite key in my development. I mean, I went down at 18. I did an arts degree, and then did fortunate enough to do a law degree. The key thing I think that was key to my development was joining St Stephen Harriers Athletics Club, at which I did when I moved to Melbourne, and getting coached by my still coach Nick Bowden, who's the head coach there. And I think that's probably the key foundation for the next setting me up and putting in place like those fundamental building blocks to progress you as an athlete. Because I mean, a number of my training partners from when I first started in Melbourne remain training partners, and my coach remains. And I think that continuity has been quite important from when I started in Melbourne.
So what did Nick provide for you in regards to the stepping blocks? Because being with the same coach obviously means that he's doing the right things for you. What did he give you in order to continue? Just
clarity with what's required. And in the simplest form, you have a training group 3 days a week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, your sessions. You have guys you're going to race with. So the first point I'm making is the group he had was very important for my development. The second point is he's probably his role, I think, in athletics, the roles he's had have been in that transition area between going from a junior to a senior. So he was a very good mentor and coach to help me bridge that gap up to seniors. When you go from, in my case, I think I won a bronze medal at the junior under 20 nationals, and then 7 years later, I won a bronze medal at the senior nationals in 2017, and that sort of just giving you the right advice and the right group to train with, and also sort of access to other groups who he knew, which is through Timo Shaughnessy, and in more recent times to Nick Beddoe, who's now become my manager. I think he was just very important in my development in that transition period.
Beautiful, mate. So you'd mentioned a bronze medal there, and in the juniors and nationals. What other things have you got under your belt in regards to success?
Most recently, I've won the Oceania Championships and obviously qualified for the World Championships in 2019. I won the Oceania Championships in Townsville. I have won 2 national bronze medals, one in 2019, one in 2017, in the 3,000 metre steeplechase, which is my pet event, if we haven't already mentioned that. And they were the 2017 was my first sort of major breakthrough season, where I also won a Victorian state title, bronze medal. But prior to that, I honestly, I had about 6 years just gradually building and getting fitter each year, and I hadn't had any representative honours or championship success since a junior when I, as I previously flagged, when I came third at the National Under-20 Steeple, and I also had some quite decent junior results, coming second at the Pacific School Games in 2008. I came third at Nationals in the Steeple in 2009 and third in 2007. So it's quite interesting. I think there's quite a big dropout rate in athletics, mainly due to that gap, that 5 to 6 years that happens to most people if you're not incredibly talented, where you are quite good as a junior, and it takes you quite a long period of consistent work to be in a position to challenge for honours again as a senior.
What kept you going along the way? I know you've had your coach and the awesome team behind you, but personally, what's kept you on that track, to now being at a World Championship and potentially Tokyo next year? What's the thing that's kept you going?
Honestly, I never actually considered stopping. Like, I certainly had injuries in 2011 to 14, which certainly restricted my development. I didn't really progress in that period. And I think I remember I had about 3 years without running a PB. But I think the key thing, I think, was just having a consistent training group that you remained part of, and having and to a different degree, having a Athletics Victoria winter premiership to fight for. And I don't know how familiar you are with Athletics Victoria or their winter season, but just having that 10 race block, which sort of gives you a gradual focus every winter and gives you a sort of more of a team aspect. It's quite integral to keeping someone in the sport when you might not be doing incredibly well personally on the track. The other thing that comes to mind is that while it took me a long time to bridge that gap to making the team, I pretty much improved every year. I know I went 3 years without a PB that I flagged in that 2011 to 2014 period, but after that, I've consistently improved every year, and I've come from being a 355, 100 metre guy in 2014 to getting to mid 350s, mid 340s now, and my steeple going from about 917 to 827. So I think when you're improving every year, you have a lot of motivation and interest in continuing. So I don't think there's anything specific that kept me in the sport. I just think I was always very motivated and keen to improve, and I was fortunate to have a really supportive group around me that would let me bring the best out of me.
It's amazing how you mentioned the winter season there. Most people associate, obviously, athletics with the Summer Olympics and things like that. So it's good to know that there's actually, especially for long-distance runners, something out there for you guys to keep going and keep those muscles warm and, keep you going and motivated. Steeplechase is an interesting one because you did mention you did 1,500. Why go do the jump to Steeplechase as well as why choose it? Because it is, again, a different thing.
I did my first steeple because I remember doing some testing when I was in about grade 8, and the key sports that said I'd be good at were athletics steeplechase and athletics middle distance running. And I did my first steeple in 2009, and honestly, it's an event which I was simply better at relative to my peers than more flat other events. So it's just an event that I did as a junior. I had good junior success. I really enjoyed it, and it was what I'm best at, I guess. I certainly had a long period. I had a few years that I didn't do it, but I probably focused more on just improving as an athlete, where I ran 1500s for a number of years, and I think I came back to the steeple in 2014. So I give you the background. I ran as a junior until 2011. I didn't race another steeple for 3 years until 2014. I just ran 1500s in that block.
Oh, well, it's a building time for you there, and it's obviously helped you. Do you mind talking us through how you're going in preparation for Doha, which is only a week or so away?
Certainly. We have done our... Let's see. we're currently in Spain, in Hoyos del Espino, with the Melbourne Track Club group. The majority of us are going to World Champs. We're here, and a couple of the boys are preparing for the New York Marathon. It's Jack Rayner and Brett Robinson. We have just come here to do a 2-week block, which for me is about 130k a week. 3 key sessions, one K rep session, one threshold, and one track session. And I did my last track session on Saturday, and had a really good one, which was, if you're interested, it was a mile in 72s, 4 600s in about 65, and then a 1200 in about 72s again, and 4 400s over barriers in 65, which is a really good sort of pre-race session because you get yourself quite tired and then you do steeple-specific work. And I'm flying to Doha on Tuesday, so I had a run this morning, go for a session tomorrow morning as well, and then drive to Madrid and fly out. And from there I have about 6 days in Doha till I race. So I land on the 25th and I race on the 1st of October, and I'm pretty much just going to jog in the air-conditioned treadmills or stadiums, and I'll do 2 sessions. I'll do a threshold on the Thursday, probably outside, just to get a feel for the heat in the evening, and I'll do a Saturday morning steeple-specific session on the indoor track, just to do my last little bit of prep work.
Now we do know it's going to.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, mate.
Final touches now.
Yeah, now we do know it's going to be hot in Doha. I'm a race walk fan, so I know that their race is at 11:30 at night. When will yours be?
Mine will be at 4:45, I believe, in the middle of the day. But honestly, the track runners are in a much better position than the race walkers or the marathon runners because while it's going to be warm, the stadium is going to be air conditioned, and I believe it's going to be between 18 and 26 degrees, which, well, it's not ideal. It's going to be it's just like a hot day, which I raced at Oceanias or which I've been training at in London or Spain. So I haven't done any heat-specific training because I don't really think I'm going to be that bothered by it. I mean, we're all going to find it a bit hot, but it's as you say, it's much more the marathoners and the race walkers who are going to be affected, which is why their events are at midnight. That's
all right. We're used to a hot weather here in Australia anyway, so it should be good for us over there.
It should be. I mean, I think it's a different. It can be a difficult transition when you come from an Australian winter and go and race in summer. Like, I know a number of people who ran in the Oceania Championships in Townsville in July found that having trained all through a Melbourne winter, it was quite hard to then go and switch on in a mid-20 degree Townsville winter. I personally found it fine because I just come off a European block and I had been training in Spain. But I think it's not simple to transition. But I don't think it'll be hot enough to be detrimental to anyone. Not on the track anyway.
No, exactly, mate. Well, I've got one last question for you before you head off and continue on with the rest of your day. What is some words of advice that you would offer to somebody that is starting out? What should they do to get themselves a coach, or what should they do to progress that one step further?
There's a couple of things there. It's like, what advice would you give, and how do you progress? I mean, the advice I'd give is just enjoy it, because you only get to do it once. And I mean, the key is just to focus on long-term improvements, and that means you're trying to put in place sort of all the building blocks to run really well in 5 years. And that's a very hard sell to someone who's a junior, but that's the thing that will both keep you in the sport and will let you progress long term and have a successful career. Your second question was sort of how do you go about that? And I think it's just tapping into a good network wherever you are based, and that means you just want to surround yourself with good people, specifically being a really good training and coaching group. And I think that was the key thing that kept me in the sport and kept me consistently improving, even if I wasn't running at a level that I might have thought I would have been by the time I was 23, 24. I was still progressing. And I think that's the key, is just having that group and that network around you to just get you a better athlete. I mean, personally, is it like just looking at the guys I'm training with now, the Melbourne Track Club guys, I've progressed significantly in the last 12 months just from being exposed to a much higher, it's just a much higher, more professional group dynamic and groups training effect. And I think that just shows that you're always going to get great value, whatever level you're at, from being around good people.
No, exactly. Well, Ben, I thank you very much for joining me today for a chat. I wish you the best of the luck at Doha and, of course, and your rest of time in Spain. Good luck with everything, and hopefully you can bring home that gold when you're over in Doha, and then hopefully we see you in Tokyo next year.
Thank you for the chat, Jordan.
There we had Ben Buckingham. Ben will be competing in the men's 3,000 metres steeplechase, as we heard. His heats are on the 1st of October at 1:15 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The final on the 4th of October at 4:45 a.m. We wish Ben the best of luck in his event. My next guest is Matt Ramsden, and Matt comes with an interesting story, starting from his high school where he was asked to run 100 kilometres in a week. He managed to do 1,000 in a term. An amazing guy that just went from doing that to now competing in Doha, as well as potentially going to Tokyo. Here is my chat with Matt Ramsden. Matthew Ramsden, I thank you very much for joining me on 2020 Vision. Tell me, mate, how did you get started as an athlete?
I reckon it started back in, it was probably about year 8, and there was this thing called the 100 Club at my high school, and I was just really competitive. I got into it just because a lot of the guys that I played footy with at school, they started doing it for fitness, and the aim of it was if you could get to 100 kilometres running on Tuesday and Thursday mornings at school, you get whoever gets to 100 kilometres the quickest gets a presentation at assembly, and you get like this little badge, and then goes to 200k, 300k like that. And anyway, so I got competitive with that and got into it, and it was run by my Japanese teacher. I ended up going, and I beat all the year 12s, managed to get to 100 first, and then ended up breaking the school record. I got to 1,000 in I think it was like the first term or something like that. So I just, like, my teacher knew I was pretty fit, and he said, I think you should go to the inter-schools. And I was just playing basketball at that stage, and just mucking around, playing a bit of rugby as well. And he said, I think you could win we had 2 inter-schools. First was Swissa, which was just the southwestern schools, and he said, I think you might have a chance of winning it. So I went and ended up winning it. And then he said, the big one is ACC. And the boys at breakfast, the year 12s, said, if you get top 20, that's really good. There was like 300 kids in the race. And ended up coming second to a guy named Ben Chamberlain, who was on his way to greatness back then. So I knew I was a raw talent, and that's kind of how I got into it. So it didn't take long for me to kind of ease off the basketball and all the other sports and just focus on athletics for a bit.
So just like Forrest Gump, you kept running, and you had a Japanese teacher to thank for it. That's a movie in itself. So where did you keep going then? Obviously, you had that raw talent sort of thought. Who pushed you along the way?
So I went to our Strive. I did Little A's, but I hated it. I actually quit twice. And then there was this team to go to Singapore. So I did the cross country season for Little A's when I was in year 8, and my only ambition was to make that team to go to Singapore, and end up making it. I finished second at state, and then a few months later I was getting ready to go, and they said, no, there's no cross country in Singapore, it's a 1,500. So I thought, I might actually need to start focusing on a bit of track work, and I ended up meeting a guy named Shane Ellis, who lived quite close to where I lived, and he kind of took me under his wing and coached me my whole way through juniors, and I was always like an average junior on the national level until I turned 18. That's when I made a breakthrough, but before that it was just, I had little goals like try and make teams here and there, I was always motivated by representing my state. That was my main motivation. And then once I was doing that regularly, I wanted to make an Australian team. So that became my motivation after that.
So you met the guy, and does he coach you until what point? When do you start getting coached properly?
He started coaching me when I was year 8, so I think that was end of 2012.
Yeah.
It was a few weeks before the national cross country in Adelaide. 2012, yeah. So that was when I started he started coaching me, and he coached me all the way through till I was end of World Juniors. Then I moved to Nick Bedeau.
Okay, and what has Nick done for you in the way of times? Because obviously you're not a cross country runner, you're a 1500, and that's what pushed you for Doha selection. So how's he helped you?
So straight away he kind of set me up with a good system. It was a lot more professional. I wasn't mucking around in Perth so much. I could come on camps, and there was like an abundance of elite athletes for me to kind of learn from and get shown the right way. Like Brett Robinson, Ryan Gregson. Stewie was just a young buck back then, but he helps me a lot now. Collis helped me a bit. Those were the main guys that helped me back then. And other than that, it was like he managed to get me some deals with Nike, which helps a lot, goes a long way. But I think the biggest thing was just his coaching, what he taught me through his coaching, and then also helped me get into races. That's also a huge thing. If you can't get into decent races, you never really know your potential because you're just racing like silly meets in Australia. You can kind of learn from the bigger meets in Europe and that where you're at in the world and what you need to do to be better.
So you mentioned a team there, so a bunch of guys that you run with and that have helped you along the way. What's that team mentality do for an athlete? How does it help you continue?
It's really good because it's rare for someone to be on fire every day. So if one guy's a little bit tired, another guy will pick it up, and the same kind of vibe will carry on from the next day and so forth. So the group's always at the same level. Not very often there's two guys that are both kind of hurting on a session on the same day. It's very rare. So there's always a high level at training, and other than that, we always pick each other up. There's not really negativity at all between any of our athletes here. It's all just trying to get everyone better. We're a very close-knit group, and some will find it's hard to break into the group once they first join, but once you can get through all the banter and whatnot, they're like your best friends. They'll always have your back. So it's really good being an MTC, really, because they just help you no matter what.
That's all right, mate. Now, I did have Ben Buckingham, who is also going to be on this episode. He calls you Rambo. Is that a thing, or is that something you like?
Yeah, I think Nick actually came up with that. He started calling me Rambo. Usually before that, I was called Ramsey from my football mates.
Okay.
Or just Ramsden or Matty, stuff like that, but never Rambo, so that was new when he came up with that.
No, Rambo, definitely, if you've seen the movies, is a different character, so I guess that one's good for you. What's your next, obviously going to Doha, what's your planning like that for that so far?
It's gone all right. Just like consistent training here at Spain, and it's just like we don't really change too much. It's similar training all the way through from our European season like debut, and then I guess we just do a little bit more track work in the week leading up, but it's really not too much different from what we usually do.
No, easy done, mate. So how do you what are we hearing in the background? Actually, I can hear a bell ringing. Is that
so at every hour, 3 minutes past the hour, 'cause it's a bit late, they sound this big like clock thing, and like wakes you up at midnight and stuff. But it's it just like reminds you of the time, but it's late, so you always know it's 3 past the hour.
No, that's all right, mate. It's a bit of culture for us here on the episode. So What do you do personally for yourself? You've got the team behind you. Is there any mantras that you use for yourself to keep going in a race, or anything that you think about? Because it is good to have that sort of mental attitude behind you.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. A lot of people think about different things, like different things motivate them. For me, I just love running, and that's kind of I'm just a really competitive guy. Like all my friends know that I want to be the best at anything I do. So I think that's what motivates me the most, just constantly trying to get the most out of myself. But yeah, it's not that hard for me to be motivated because I do like this sport a lot. So going to training and training hard, I enjoy that. But when it comes down to the real nitty gritty hard race, I usually just think about all the hard work I've put in, and I can't let myself and everyone who's helped me down. So that's when especially when your back's against the wall, that's when you got to fight. And I think knowing that you've done so much already you worked so hard for everything you've done so far, that kind of helps you persevere in those moments.
No, that's good, mate. Now, Nick, you talked about Nick earlier on in the races that he's put you in around the world. What's your do you have a favourite memory in regards to races, or is there a favourite race that you like to go and do?
I really enjoy Lignano, but for different reasons. Like Lignano is a good meet because it's kind of like a low-key meet. It's in Italy, and it's in kind of like a holiday destination in Italy. It's really warm. Across the water, you can see Croatia. And the meet's just really relaxed. You can run fast there as well. I ran 3:37 this year, but the weather was a little bit average. But this year it was really fun because we had Geordie, Ryan Gregson, and Oliver Hall were there. And Oliver Hall was kind of new to our, he just came for a apprenticeship, I guess, with our training group, and it was good to meet him there and just get to know him. And so it wasn't really, it was a kind of relaxed, and I won there as well, which helps. But yeah, I really enjoyed that meet, and then I enjoyed Bern this year for the same reason, just kind of low key meet, really enjoyable. But then I also I really enjoyed Oslo this year. It was my first proper Diamond League race, and I got the WA record there for 3K, ran 7:45. But yeah, it's not often I go to races and I think, I hate racing here. There's so many good places to visit, and it's also your attitude when you rock up. If you're ready to if you know you've done everything you can and you're ready to run quick, and you also keep an open mind to the culture and willing to try different things, then you're going to have a good time.
No, definitely. And if we go to Doha, it's going to be a bit of a culture shock in a sense. So how are you feeling towards Doha? Obviously the heat, and also, again, the culture. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I've raced in Israel in 2014. I made the IAAF schools team to go to Israel for the cross country there with a few guys, and it was a Middle Eastern vibe, obviously, but I really enjoyed racing there, and I raced not too bad. So I don't think the weather or culture will mess me around too much. But yeah, I'm just going there with an open mind, and I know I've done all the training, so I know I'll go all right.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, mate. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how you do go when it comes to it. Do you know your time of your race for the people that are wanting to watch?
I'm not sure the time back in Australia, but I think it's 8 o'clock, around 8:30 local time in Doha on Thursday next week.
That's all right. I'll include it in the bio when we release the episode. Is there any words of advice that you would offer to younger athletes that are looking to get started? Obviously not going to the 100K club like you were in, but let's see. What would you give to them in the way of advice?
I'd say probably keep playing other sports up until you're maybe 15 or whatever. Don't be too specific. Keep an open mind. But when you do start, make sure you're definitely only doing 2 hard sessions a week, or even just 1 hard and 1 medium session a week, and then jog the rest, because a lot of kids, when they're young, they try to become too good too quick. And I know it's hard because you're really competitive, but in the long run, it'll make the biggest difference. You won't get injured as much. You'll be naturally stronger and fitter than the other boys. And when you turn 18, you'll blow them out in races. So, yeah, you got to think long term. And it may be hard, but it's definitely worth it.
That's it, mate. Well, I wish you the best of luck in Doha and the green and gold. And, well, hopefully we'll see you in Tokyo as well. What do you think?
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks a lot, mate.
No, it's all right. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, Matt Ramsden, for being a part of 2020 Vision. Matt will be competing in the 1500 metres at Doha. His heats will be on the 3rd of October at 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The semi-finals will be on the 4th of October at 3:05 a.m, with the final being on the 6th at 2:40 a.m. I thank both Matt and Ben for being a part of 2020 Vision, episode 22. Unate a mi la próxima semana. Quien sabe a quien vamos a llegar. Join me next week. Who knows who we're gonna get. For more of a look at our athletes that we feature on episodes, go to our Facebook page, 2020 Vision Podcast, where you will find all information on our episodes as well as what's happening next week. This is 2020 Vision.